73% of the loudest people in any meeting are the least trusted by their colleagues. That number comes from a 2019 study published in the Journal of Applied Psychology. And here's the part that changes everything. The same study found that people who spoke the least were rated as the most competent, the most credible, and the most likely to be followed in a crisis. So if talking more does not build authority, what does? That question will reshape everything you believe about power, influence, and leadership in the next 2 hours. Right now, somewhere in the world, a quiet professional is sitting in a meeting. They have the best idea in the room. They know exactly what needs to happen, but they are watching someone else dominate the conversation. Someone louder, someone faster, someone who seems to take up all the oxygen. And that quiet professional is asking themselves the same question you might be asking right now. What is wrong with me? Why can I not just speak up like they do? Why does confidence seem so effortless for everyone else? Here is the truth that nobody tells you. There is nothing wrong with you. The problem is not your personality. The problem is a lie you have been taught since childhood. A lie that says power comes from volume, that authority comes from dominance, that the person who talks the most wins. That lie is about to shatter. Welcome to Silent Power. This is not another book telling you to fake confidence. This is not motivation noise. This is a science-backed, practical system for building real authority without saying a single unnecessary word. By the time you finish listening, you will understand exactly why calm people are naturally respected, how silence triggers trust in the human brain, and how to project unshakable confidence in any room you walk into. Let me introduce you to someone. His name is Jordan Hale. He is 32 years old, and he works as a senior product manager at a fast-growing tech company. On paper, Jordan is brilliant. He graduated top of his class. His analytical skills are exceptional. His ideas have quietly saved his company millions of dollars. But Jordan has a problem. In every meeting, he watches colleagues with half his talent get twice the recognition. They are not smarter than him. They are just louder. Jordan sits in meetings with his heart pounding. He rehearses what he wants to say. He waits for the right moment. But by the time he is ready to speak, someone else has already jumped in. Marcus, the sales director, dominates every conversation. He interrupts. He talks over people. He makes statements with absolute certainty even when he is completely wrong. And somehow, everyone listens to him. Meanwhile, Jordan sends his best ideas via email after the meeting ends. Nobody reads them. Last month, Jordan lost a promotion to Marcus. That was the moment Jordan started wondering if he needed to change who he was. If maybe the only way to succeed was to become someone he did not want to be. Louder, more aggressive, more like Marcus. Jordan is not alone. Research from Harvard Business School shows that 67% of introverted professionals believe they must adopt extroverted behaviors to advance in their careers. And here's the tragedy. When they try, it backfires. A 2021 study from the University of California found that when naturally quiet people force themselves to be more outgoing, their stress hormones increase by 41%. Their performance drops. And perhaps most importantly, their colleagues perceive them as less authentic, less trustworthy, and less competent. So the very strategy Jordan was considering, becoming louder, would have made his situation worse. This is the trap millions of quiet professionals fall into every single day. They believe the myth of loud power. And that myth is destroying their careers, their confidence, and their well-being. But there is another way. In every organization, there is a different kind of leader. They do not dominate conversations. They do not raise their voice. They do not fight for airtime. Yet somehow, when they speak, everyone listens. When a crisis hits, everyone looks at them. When a decision needs to be made, their opinion carries the most weight. These people have discovered something that most professionals never learn. Authority is not about how much you say. Authority is about how you make people feel when you are in the room. And that feeling, that sense of calm, grounded presence, is something that can be trained. It is not a personality trait. It is a nervous system state. This is the core principle of silent power. Your ability to stay calm under pressure is not determined by your genetics or your childhood or whether you are an introvert or an extrovert. It is determined by the state of your autonomic nervous system. And the good news is that your nervous system can be regulated. It can be trained. It can be optimized for authority the same way an athlete trains for peak performance. Let me share something that might surprise you. Stanford University researchers studied over 3,000 leaders across multiple industries in 2022. They wanted to know what separated exceptional leaders from average ones. Was it intelligence? Experience? Communication skills? The number one predictor of leadership effectiveness was not any of those things. It was emotional regulation, the ability to stay calm when everyone else was reactive, the ability to respond instead of react, the ability to hold steady when pressure mounted. This finding explains why so many loud, charismatic people fail as leaders. They can command attention, but they cannot command trust. They can dominate a room, but they cannot hold it together when things go wrong. Meanwhile, the quiet leader who never raises their voice becomes the person everyone turns to in a crisis. Because in moments of chaos, humans are biologically wired to follow the calmest person in the room. Think about that for a moment. Your brain, at its deepest level, does not trust loudness. It trusts calm. Loudness signals threat. Calm signals safety. This is not opinion. This is neuroscience. And once you understand this, everything about power and authority looks different. Here is what separates elite performers from average ones. Average professionals believe authority comes from external displays, from talking more, gesturing bigger, taking up space. They work hard to look confident. Elite performers understand that authority radiates from internal state, from nervous system regulation, from the deep, grounded calm that others can feel before a single word is spoken. Average professionals react. They get triggered. They respond emotionally. Then they spend hours replaying conversations and wishing they had said something different. Elite performers regulate first. They observe. They choose their response. Then they speak. And when they speak, every word carries weight. This is not about being passive. This is not about staying silent when you should speak up. This is about understanding that the quality of your silence determines the power of your words. When you speak from a regulated nervous system, people lean in. When you speak from reactivity, people tune out. Jordan does not know this yet, but he is about to learn. Over the next chapters, you will follow his journey from invisible contributor to the person everyone looks to for guidance. You will watch him transform not by becoming louder, but by becoming more grounded, more regulated, more calm. And you will learn exactly how to apply the same transformation to your own life. You will also meet Amira, a 29-year-old criminal defense attorney who works in a male-dominated legal environment where aggression is normalized. She has been told her entire career that she needs to be more ruthless, more intimidating. She will discover that her calm, her sensitivity, her ability to stay composed under attack is not her weakness. It is her greatest weapon. And you will meet Noah, a 41-year-old former rock musician who now runs a startup. His charisma built the company. His volatility is destroying it. He will learn the difference between intensity and grounded power. And he will discover that the most commanding presence in any room is not the loudest voice. It is the stillest one. But before their stories unfold, you need to understand the science. Because silent power is not a philosophy. It is not a mindset trick. It is a biological system that operates in your body right now, whether you are aware of it or not. In the next chapter, you will learn exactly how your nervous system creates or destroys authority. You will understand why some people radiate calm confidence while others radiate anxiety. And you will discover the first practical technique for shifting your nervous system from reactive to regulated in any moment. The myth of loud power has held you back long enough. It is time to learn what actually works. Chapter 2. The neuroscience of calm authority. Your body decides whether people trust you before your mouth opens. That is not metaphor. That is neuroscience. In the next 12 minutes, you will understand exactly how your nervous system broadcasts signals of authority or anxiety to everyone around you. And you will learn why most advice about confidence completely misses the point. Here is what nobody told you about leadership psychology. Humans do not evaluate each other with logic first. They evaluate each other with biology. Before your brain processes someone's words, Your nervous system has already scanned them for threat or safety. This happens in milliseconds. It happens below conscious awareness, and it determines everything that follows. Whether people lean in or pull back, whether they trust or doubt, whether they follow or resist. Dr. Stephen Porges at Indiana University spent over 40 years studying this phenomenon. His research, known as polyvagal theory, revealed something that changes everything about how we understand authority. Your autonomic nervous system has 3 distinct states, and each state broadcasts a completely different signal to the world. The first state is called ventral vagal. This is the state of calm, grounded presence. When your nervous system is in ventral vagal, your heart rate is steady. Your breathing is slow and deep. Your facial muscles are relaxed. Your voice has warmth and resonance. In this state, you feel safe. And crucially, you make others feel safe. This is the biological foundation of calm authority. People in ventral vagal are perceived as confident, competent, and trustworthy. They do not need to prove anything. Their nervous system does the work for them. The second state is sympathetic activation. This is fight or flight. When your nervous system shifts into sympathetic, your heart rate increases. Your breathing becomes shallow and fast. Your muscles tense. Your voice gets higher and tighter. You might talk faster, interrupt more, or become defensive. In this state, you are broadcasting threat. Not intentionally, not consciously, but every human around you picks up on it. Their nervous systems respond to yours. And suddenly, instead of trust, you create tension. This is why anxious leaders make anxious teams. This is why reactive managers create reactive cultures. The nervous system is contagious. The third state is dorsal vagal. This is freeze and shut down. When your nervous system drops into dorsal vagal, you disconnect. You go blank. Your mind empties. You might know exactly what you want to say, but the words will not come. This is what happens to Jordan in high-pressure meetings. His nervous system perceives threat, skips fight or flight, and goes straight to freeze. He is not weak. He is not incompetent. His nervous system is simply doing what it evolved to do when it perceives danger. The problem is that a conference room full of colleagues is not actually dangerous. But his nervous system does not know that. This is the key insight that transforms everything. Your confidence problems are not personality problems. They are nervous system problems. And nervous system problems have nervous system solutions. You do not need to become a different person. You need to learn how to regulate your biology. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. 2 months after losing his promotion, Jordan sat in Lena Park's office. Lena is an executive coach who specializes in nervous system regulation for leaders. She has worked with Fortune 500 executives, startup founders, and high-performing professionals who all share the same challenge. They are brilliant at their jobs, but struggle to project the authority their competence deserves. Lena asked Jordan a question that changed his perspective entirely. She said, "When you are in a meeting and someone like Marcus starts dominating the conversation, what happens in your body?" Jordan thought about it. His chest gets tight. His heart beats faster. His throat constricts. His mind starts racing with all the things he should say, but cannot seem to get out. Lena nodded. That is your sympathetic nervous system activating. Your body is going into threat response. And from that state, confident communication is physiologically impossible. It is not a mindset problem. It is a state problem. This distinction matters more than you might realize. The entire self-help industry tells you to think confident thoughts, to visualize success, to repeat affirmations. But here is what University of California researchers discovered in 2020. Positive thinking has almost no effect on performance when your nervous system is dysregulated. You cannot think your way out of a biological state. You have to shift the state first. Then the confident thoughts can actually take root. Here is the difference between elite performers and average ones. Average professionals try to manage their psychology while ignoring their physiology. They tell themselves to calm down while their nervous system is screaming threat. They try to project confidence while their biology is broadcasting anxiety. It never works. Elite performers understand that physiology comes first. They regulate their nervous system before they try to perform. They shift their state before they speak. And because they operate from ventral vagal, Their words carry natural weight. They do not have to try to be confident. They simply are confident because confidence is the natural output of a regulated nervous system. Think about the calmest, most authoritative person you have ever met. Maybe it was a mentor, a leader you admired, someone who walked into a room and everyone noticed, even though they were not the loudest or most animated. What was it about them? They were probably not performing confidence. They were not using big gestures or powerful poses. They were simply present, grounded, still. Their nervous system was in ventral vagal, and everyone around them could feel it. Now think about the most anxious, insecure leader you have experienced. Maybe they talked too much. Maybe they got defensive easily. Maybe they needed constant validation. Their nervous system was likely stuck in sympathetic activation, constantly scanning for threat, constantly preparing to fight or flee. And everyone around them could feel that too. The nervous system does not lie. It cannot be faked. And that is why calm authority is so much more powerful than performed confidence. Performed confidence can be detected. Calm authority is felt. Here is something that might surprise you. A 2018 study from Princeton University found that humans can accurately assess another person's confidence level in just 100 milliseconds. That is 1/10 of a second, faster than conscious thought. How is this possible? Because we are not assessing confidence with our logic. We are assessing it with our nervous systems. We are picking up on microexpressions, vocal tone, posture, breathing patterns, all the subtle signals that reveal someone's internal state. And we are doing it automatically, below conscious awareness. This is why faking confidence does not work. Your nervous system state leaks through every channel of communication. Your voice reveals it. Your eyes reveal it. Your muscle tension reveals it. Even your smell changes based on your stress level. Humans can literally smell anxiety. So when you try to act confident while feeling anxious, people do not see a confident person. They see an anxious person trying to appear confident. And that actually decreases trust. But when you genuinely regulate your nervous system, when you shift into ventral vagal before you walk into a room, everything changes. Your voice naturally deepens and slows. Your movements become more deliberate. Your eye contact becomes steady rather than darting. You do not have to think about any of these things. They happen automatically as outputs of your regulated state. This is what Lena taught Jordan in their first session together. She said, "You have been trying to fix your communication, but communication is downstream. Your nervous system is upstream. Fix the nervous system, and the communication fixes itself." Jordan was skeptical at first. He had read books about body language. He had practiced power poses in his bathroom mirror. None of it had made a difference. But what Lena was describing was different. She was not asking him to perform confidence. She was teaching him to create the biological conditions from which confidence naturally emerges. There is a technique that elite performers use to shift their nervous system state in any moment. It is called the physiological sigh. Researchers at Stanford University, led by Dr. Andrew Huberman, found that this specific breathing pattern is the fastest way to activate the parasympathetic nervous system and shift from sympathetic arousal to ventral vagal calm. The technique is simple. You take 2 inhales through the nose, the second one shorter than the first, followed by 1 long exhale through the mouth. 2 short inhales, 1 long exhale. That is it. Huberman's research showed that just 1 to 3 physiological sighs can measurably reduce heart rate and cortisol within 30 seconds. Jordan started practicing this technique before every meeting. Not during the meeting, when he was already triggered. Before, while he was still calm. He would sit at his desk, do 3 physiological sighs, and then walk into the room. The difference was subtle at first, but over weeks, it accumulated. His colleagues started noticing that Jordan seemed different, more present, more grounded. They could not explain why. They just knew that when Jordan spoke, they wanted to listen. This is the power of nervous system regulation. It does not announce itself. It does not draw attention. It simply shifts the quality of your presence in ways that other people feel but cannot articulate. And that felt sense of calm authority is worth more than 1,000 confident words. But breathing is just the beginning. In the next chapter, you will learn why silence itself is one of the most powerful signals your nervous system can send. You will discover the psychology behind non-reactivity and why people who do not react are perceived as the most powerful people in any room. And you will meet Amira, who learned to use silence as a weapon in one of the most aggressive environments imaginable, a criminal courtroom. Your nervous system is the foundation. Now it is time to build on it. Chapter 3. Why Silence Signals Strength. The most powerful person in any courtroom is not the one speaking. It is the one who does not need to speak. That insight took Amira Blake 3 years and one complete breakdown to understand. And it transformed her from a struggling attorney into one of the most respected litigators in her city. Silence is not empty space. Silence is a signal. And when you understand how the human brain interprets that signal, you will never think about communication the same way again. Let me take you into a courtroom. It is 9:43 in the morning. The fluorescent lights hum overhead. Amira sits at the defense table, her hands folded, her breathing slow. Across the aisle, the opposing counsel is doing what he always does. Pacing, gesturing, filling every moment with words. His voice rises and falls dramatically. He points at exhibits. He makes eye contact with each juror like a performer scanning his audience. He is good at this. He has won cases with this approach for 20 years. But Amira does not react. She does not roll her eyes. She does not shake her head. She does not whisper objections to her co-counsel. She simply sits, still, present, watching. The jurors notice. They always notice. Something about her calm makes them curious. Something about her stillness makes them lean forward when she finally stands to speak. And when she does speak, her voice is low and measured. She does not match the opposing counsel's energy. She does not try to outperform him. She simply states facts, asks questions, lets silence do the work between her sentences. This was not always how Amira operated. 3 years ago, she was drowning. Fresh out of law school, she had joined a prestigious firm where aggression was the currency of respect. Her mentors told her she needed to be louder, more forceful, more intimidating. "You are too soft," they said. "This profession will eat you alive if you do not toughen up." So Amira tried. She studied the senior partners. She mimicked their sharp tones and aggressive cross-examinations. She learned to interrupt witnesses and steamroll opposing counsel. And for a while, it seemed to work. She won a few cases. She earned grudging respect from colleagues who had written her off. But inside, she was falling apart. Every aggressive exchange left her exhausted. Every confrontation triggered anxiety that lasted for days. She would lie awake replaying interactions, wondering if she had been too harsh or not harsh enough. Her nervous system was constantly activated, constantly scanning for the next threat. She was winning in court and losing everywhere else. The breakdown came after a particularly brutal case. She had destroyed a witness on cross-examination, torn apart their testimony with surgical precision. Her colleagues congratulated her. The senior partner said it was the best cross he had seen in years. But that night, Amira sat in her car in the parking garage and could not stop crying. She did not feel powerful. She felt hollow. She had become someone she did not recognize, and she did not know how to go back. This is the trap that catches so many quiet people in aggressive environments. They believe they must abandon who they are to succeed. They believe their natural calm is a weakness that must be overcome. So they perform aggression, they perform dominance, and they destroy themselves in the process. But here is what the research actually shows. A landmark study from Columbia Business School in 2017 examined how jurors perceive attorneys. The researchers analyzed over 2,000 trial recordings and surveyed jurors about their impressions. The finding was striking. Attorneys who displayed calm, measured behavior were rated as 34% more credible than those who displayed aggressive, dominant behavior. Jurors described the calm attorneys as more trustworthy, more competent, and more likable. The aggressive attorneys were seen as less believable, even when presenting identical evidence. Why does this happen? Because aggression triggers the threat detection system in the human brain. When someone is loud, fast, and forceful, the amygdala activates. The listener's nervous system shifts into defensive mode. And from that defensive state, persuasion becomes nearly impossible. The listener is not evaluating your argument. They are protecting themselves from your energy. Silence works the opposite way. When you are calm and still, you signal safety. The listener's nervous system relaxes. Their prefrontal cortex comes online, which is the part of the brain responsible for rational evaluation and decision-making. From this relaxed state, they can actually hear your message. They can consider your evidence. They can be persuaded. This is the power of silent psychology. It is not passive. It is strategic. You are not withdrawing from the interaction. You are creating the neurological conditions for influence. Here is how elite communicators differ from average ones. Average communicators try to fill silence. They are uncomfortable with pauses. They interpret silence as awkwardness, as failure, as something that must be fixed with more words. So they talk faster. They over-explain. They dilute their message with filler. And paradoxically, the more they talk, the less impact they have. Elite communicators understand that silence is not empty. Silence is emphasis. When you pause after a key point, you give the listener's brain time to process. You signal that what you just said matters. You create space for your words to land. Research from the University of Michigan found that strategic pauses increase message retention by up to 40%. The pause is not dead air. The pause is where persuasion happens. Amira learned this lesson from an unexpected source. After her breakdown, she took a leave of absence and spent 3 months studying communication patterns of highly effective leaders. She watched hours of footage, Supreme Court arguments, high-stakes negotiations, crisis press conferences, and she noticed something that changed her entire approach. The most commanding figures were not the most talkative. They were the most selective. They spoke less than everyone else in the room. But when they spoke, every word carried weight. She noticed something else. These leaders were comfortable with silence in a way that others were not. When asked a difficult question, they did not rush to answer. They paused. They breathed. They let the silence sit. And that silence, rather than making them look uncertain, made them look thoughtful, deliberate, in control. This is what psychologists call the silence competence effect. Multiple studies have confirmed that people who pause before answering questions are perceived as more intelligent and more confident than those who answer immediately. A 2019 study from Harvard found that a pause of just 2 to 3 seconds before responding increased perceived competence by 23%. The pause signals that you are thinking, that you are choosing your words carefully, that what you are about to say has been considered rather than blurted. When Amira returned to practice, she was a different attorney. She stopped trying to match the aggression of her opponents. Instead, she leaned into her natural calm. She spoke less in court. She used strategic pauses. She let opposing counsel fill the silence with their own nervous energy while she remained still. And something remarkable happened. Judges started treating her with more respect. Jurors started trusting her more. Even opposing attorneys, the aggressive ones who used to intimidate her, started approaching her differently. Her calm unsettled them. They did not know how to fight someone who would not fight back. Here is the principle that quiet people are powerful when they understand. Reactivity is weakness. Non-reactivity is strength. When someone attacks you verbally and you react with defensiveness or counteraggression, you have given them control. Your emotional state is now determined by their behavior. But when someone attacks you and you remain calm, you retain control. Your emotional state belongs to you. And that demonstration of emotional control is one of the most powerful authority signals a human being can send. Think about the leaders you most respect. The ones who handle crisis with grace. The ones who stay composed when everyone else is panicking. What is it about them that inspires such confidence? It is not their words. It is their non-reactivity. Their ability to absorb pressure without being destabilized by it. Their nervous system stays regulated when everyone else's is spinning out of control. And that regulation broadcasts a message louder than any speech. I am in control. I am not threatened. You can trust me to lead through this. This is why calm people are naturally respected. Not because they are passive, not because they avoid conflict, but because their non-reactivity signals a level of internal stability that most people desperately want to follow. In a world of constant noise and endless reactivity, calm is rare. And rare things are valuable. Amira discovered something else in her transformation. The less she reacted to provocations, the more provocations decreased. Opposing counsel stopped trying to bait her when they realized it did not work. Difficult witnesses became less combative when faced with her steady presence. Aggression needs a target to sustain itself. When you refuse to be that target, when you remain calm and unreactive, the aggression often exhausts itself and fades. This is what you will learn to do, not by suppressing your emotions, not by pretending provocations do not affect you, but by developing the nervous system capacity to actually stay calm when triggered. The techniques exist. The science is clear. And in the next chapter, you will learn exactly how to build this capacity. You will discover the art of non-reaction, the specific practices that allow you to stay grounded when everything around you is chaos. And you will watch Jordan face his biggest test yet, a direct confrontation with Marcus in a high-stakes meeting where everything is on the line. Silence is not the absence of power. Silence is power in its purest form, and you are about to learn how to wield it. Chapter 4. The Art of Non-Reaction. The moment someone triggers you is the moment they own you. That single truth separates people who command respect from people who chase it. And Jordan was about to learn it the hard way. It was a Thursday afternoon. The conference room was packed. 12 people sat around the table for the quarterly product review. Jordan had prepared for 2 weeks. His presentation was flawless. His data was bulletproof. This was his chance to prove that the promotion should have been his. He was 4 slides into his presentation when Marcus interrupted. "Hold on," Marcus said, leaning back in his chair with that familiar smirk. "These numbers don't add up. I've seen the customer feedback, and it completely contradicts what you're showing here." Jordan felt his chest tighten. His heart rate spiked. The familiar freeze started creeping in. 12 faces turned toward him, waiting to see how he would respond. 3 months ago, Jordan would have crumbled. He would have stammered through a defensive explanation. He would have lost the room and spent the next week replaying the moment in his head. But 3 months ago, Jordan had not yet learned what he was about to demonstrate. He paused, not because he was frozen, because he chose to pause. He took one slow breath. He looked at Marcus without hostility, without defensiveness. And then he spoke. "That's interesting. Which specific feedback are you referring to? I'd like to understand the discrepancy." The room shifted. Something in Jordan's calm response changed the energy. Marcus, who was expecting either a defensive reaction or a collapse, seemed momentarily uncertain. He fumbled for specifics. He did not have them. He had been bluffing, as he often did, using confident assertions to dominate conversations. Jordan waited. He did not fill the silence. He did not rescue Marcus from his own overreach. After an uncomfortable pause, the VP of engineering spoke. "Let's let Jordan finish his presentation. We can discuss concerns in the Q&A." Jordan nodded and continued. His voice was steady. His hands were still. He finished his presentation without another interruption. And when the meeting ended, 3 colleagues approached him separately to say the same thing. "That was impressive. You handled that really well." What happened in that moment? Jordan did not become a different person. He did not suddenly develop superhuman confidence. He applied a technique, a specific, trainable skill that anyone can learn. The skill of non-reaction. Non-reaction is not suppression. This distinction is critical. Suppression means feeling a strong emotion and pushing it down, pretending it does not exist. Suppression is exhausting and ultimately ineffective. The emotion leaks out in other ways. Your voice tightens. Your face hardens. People sense the tension even if they cannot name it. Non-reaction is different. Non-reaction means creating space between stimulus and response. It means feeling the trigger without being controlled by it. It means choosing your response rather than having your response chosen for you by your emotional state. The neuroscience behind this is well documented. When you experience a trigger, your amygdala fires within 12 milliseconds. That is faster than conscious thought. Your body begins preparing for threat before you even know what is happening. Heart rate increases. Stress hormones flood your system. Blood flow shifts away from your prefrontal cortex, the rational thinking center, toward your limbic system, the emotional reaction center. This is why intelligent people say stupid things when triggered. This is why skilled professionals lose their composure in high-pressure moments. Their thinking brain has literally gone offline. But here is what researchers at Columbia University discovered in 2018. The amygdala response is automatic, but it is not permanent. If you can delay your response by just 6 seconds, your prefrontal cortex begins coming back online. Stress hormones start to metabolize. The emotional hijack loosens its grip. 6 seconds. That is all it takes to shift from reaction to choice. This is why the pause is so powerful. Not because it looks confident, although it does, but because it literally changes your brain chemistry. The pause is not performance. The pause is biology. When Jordan paused before responding to Marcus, he was not just appearing calm. He was giving his nervous system time to regulate. He was allowing his thinking brain to come back online. And from that regulated state, he could choose a response that served him rather than a reaction that would have undermined him. Here is the difference between elite performers and average ones in high-pressure moments. Average performers react at the speed of emotion. They feel triggered and they respond immediately from the amygdala, from fight or flight, from the part of the brain that evolved to escape predators, not to navigate office politics. Their reactions often make situations worse. They escalate conflicts. They say things they regret. They give away their power to whoever triggered them. Elite performers respond at the speed of choice. They feel the same triggers. They experience the same initial amygdala activation. But they have trained themselves to insert a pause, to delay their response until their prefrontal cortex is back in control. And from that regulated state, they can choose responses that de-escalate, that redirect, that maintain their authority and composure. Jordan learned a specific technique from Lena that made this possible. She called it the golden 5 seconds. The practice is simple but requires consistent training to become automatic. When you feel triggered, you do 5 things in 5 seconds. 1. You notice the trigger. You mentally acknowledge that something just activated your nervous system. 2. You feel your feet on the floor. This grounds you in your body and interrupts the upward spiral of anxious thinking. 3. You take one slow breath, extending the exhale longer than the inhale. 4. You soften your facial muscles, particularly your jaw and forehead. 5. You ask yourself one question: what response actually serves me here? Those 5 seconds transform everything. They shift you from reactive to responsive, from controlled to in control, from amateur to professional. But the golden 5 seconds is just the immediate intervention. True mastery of non-reaction requires building what psychologists call distress tolerance. This is your capacity to experience uncomfortable emotions without being destabilized by them. People with low distress tolerance feel overwhelmed by even minor provocations. Their nervous system interprets discomfort as emergency. People with high distress tolerance can experience significant provocation and remain grounded. Their nervous system has learned that discomfort is survivable. Research from Yale University's psychology department shows that distress tolerance is not fixed. It is trainable. Like a muscle, it strengthens with practice. And the primary way to build it is through deliberate exposure to manageable discomfort combined with regulation techniques. This is why Jordan's transformation did not happen overnight. He practiced. He started with small triggers and worked his way up. He deliberately put himself in uncomfortable situations, not to suffer, but to train his nervous system to stay regulated under pressure. Every time he successfully navigated a trigger without reacting, his distress tolerance increased. His window of tolerance, the range of activation he could experience while staying grounded, expanded. Let me give you a practical framework for building this capacity. It is called the exposure ladder. You start by identifying situations that trigger you, then ranking them from mildly uncomfortable to highly distressing. You begin practicing non-reaction in the mildest situations first. Maybe it is staying calm when a colleague takes credit for your idea in a small meeting. Maybe it is not reacting when someone interrupts you during a casual conversation. These small victories build your capacity. They train your nervous system to stay regulated under pressure. And gradually, you work your way up the ladder to more challenging triggers. By the time you face a high-stakes confrontation like Jordan did with Marcus, your nervous system has been trained. The regulation is not effortful. It is automatic. Here is something important to understand about non-reaction. It is not about being passive. It is not about letting people walk over you. It is about choosing when and how to respond from a position of strength rather than reacting from a position of weakness. Sometimes the most powerful response is silence. Sometimes it is a calm question that exposes the other person's position. Sometimes it is a direct, firm boundary stated without emotional charge. The key is that you are choosing based on strategy, not reacting based on emotion. Amira discovered this in the courtroom. When opposing counsel attacked her arguments, her old pattern was to counterattack with equal force. Aggression met with aggression, but she learned that a different response was far more effective. She would pause. She would let the attack land without visible impact. And then she would respond with calm precision, addressing the substance while ignoring the emotional provocation. This drove aggressive opponents crazy. They did not know how to fight someone who would not engage in combat. Their aggression, finding no target, often escalated to the point where they looked unreasonable to judges and jurors. Amira did not have to defeat them. She just had to stay calm while they defeated themselves. This is the profound truth about emotional control in conflict. Reactivity feeds the conflict. Non-reactivity starves it. When you react emotionally to a provocation, you add fuel to the fire. You give the other person evidence that their tactics are working. You escalate the situation and make resolution less likely. But when you remain calm, you change the entire dynamic. You deny the other person the reaction they were seeking. You maintain your authority and credibility. And often, you create space for the situation to de-escalate naturally. Jordan experienced this with Marcus over the following months. As Jordan's non-reactivity became consistent, Marcus's provocations became less frequent. It was not that Marcus suddenly became a better person. It was that provoking Jordan stopped being rewarding. The interruptions and challenges that used to derail Jordan now bounced off him harmlessly. And Marcus, consciously or not, started directing his dominance games toward easier targets. This is the power of trained non-reaction. It does not just help you survive difficult people. It actually changes how difficult people treat you. Your calm becomes a shield that deflects aggression. Your composure becomes a signal that you are not worth attacking. And gradually, you become the person that others approach with respect rather than provocation. But non-reaction is just one piece of the puzzle. You have learned why calm signals authority. You have learned the neuroscience of regulation. You have learned how to not react. In the next chapter, you will learn the specific techniques for actively regulating your nervous system before high-pressure situations. You will discover the two-breath reset, the practice that transforms how you show up in any room. And you will see all three characters, Jordan, Amira, and Noah, applying these techniques in their own contexts. Mastering non-reaction is about taking back control of the one thing that was always yours, your response. And once you own your response, no one can own you. Chapter 5. Regulate before you respond. The best time to regulate your nervous system is before you need it. That single shift in timing separates professionals who consistently perform under pressure from those who collapse when it matters most. Everything you have learned so far has prepared you for this chapter. Now you will learn exactly how to apply it. Most people wait until they are triggered to try to calm down. This is a fundamental mistake. When your nervous system is already activated, when cortisol and adrenaline are flooding your bloodstream, when your amygdala has hijacked your prefrontal cortex, regulation becomes exponentially harder. You are trying to put out a fire that has already spread. But when you regulate before entering a high-pressure situation, you are fireproofing yourself. You are setting your nervous system to a baseline of calm that can absorb stress without becoming destabilized. This is what elite performers understand that average performers miss. Preparation is not just mental. Preparation is physiological. Before a surgeon enters the operating room, before a pilot begins a difficult landing, before an athlete steps onto the field for a championship game, the best of them have already regulated their nervous system. They have already shifted into ventral vagal. They walk into pressure already calm, not hoping to find calm once they get there. Let me introduce you to the technique that makes this possible. It is called the two-breath reset. Lena Park taught this to Jordan, and it transformed how he shows up in every high-stakes situation. The technique is deceptively simple, but its effects are profound. Here's how it works. Before entering any situation where you need to project calm authority, you take 2 specific breaths. The first breath is a long, slow inhale through your nose for a count of 4, followed by an extended exhale through your mouth for a count of 8. The exhale is deliberately twice as long as the inhale. This ratio activates your parasympathetic nervous system and begins shifting you out of sympathetic arousal. The second breath follows the same pattern. 4 counts in, 8 counts out. But on this second breath, you add one element. As you exhale, you consciously release tension from your shoulders, your jaw, and your forehead. You let your facial muscles soften. You let your shoulders drop. 2 breaths, 15 seconds total. And your nervous system has begun shifting toward regulation. The science behind this is robust. Research from the HeartMath Institute has demonstrated that extended exhales stimulate the vagus nerve, which is the primary pathway for activating the parasympathetic nervous system. When your exhale is longer than your inhale, your heart rate variability increases, which is a key marker of nervous system flexibility and resilience. Dr. Herbert Benson at Harvard Medical School documented what he called the relaxation response, showing that specific breathing patterns can measurably reduce blood pressure, heart rate, and stress hormone levels within 60 seconds. But here's what makes the 2-breath reset different from generic breathing advice. It is designed to be invisible and instant. You can do it in an elevator on the way to a meeting. You can do it at your desk before a difficult phone call. You can do it in a bathroom stall before walking into a confrontation. No one knows you are doing it. There is no awkward meditation pose. There is no app to open. Just 2 breaths that shift your entire physiological state. Jordan made this his pre-meeting ritual. Every single time he walked toward a conference room, he would pause for 15 seconds and complete the 2-breath reset. At first, it felt mechanical. He had to remind himself to do it. But within 3 weeks, it became automatic. His body learned to associate walking toward meetings with regulation, and his colleagues noticed the change before he did. Jordan seems different lately, they would say. More present, more grounded. They could not identify what had changed because nothing visible had changed. What changed was invisible. His nervous system state. Now let me show you how Amira applies these principles in her context. The courtroom is one of the most high-pressure environments imaginable. Stakes are enormous. Emotions run high. Opposing counsel is trained to provoke and destabilize. Amira cannot afford to walk into court hoping she will stay calm. She has to arrive already regulated. Her ritual begins 30 minutes before she enters the courtroom. She finds a quiet space, usually an empty conference room, or even her car in the parking garage. She spends 5 minutes doing what she calls the internal courtroom. This is a visualization technique where she mentally rehearses the most challenging moments she might face. She imagines opposing counsel attacking her arguments. She imagines hostile witnesses. She imagines the judge ruling against her. And in each scenario, she visualizes herself responding with calm precision. She sees herself pausing before she speaks. She sees her face remaining neutral. She sees her voice staying low and measured. This is not positive thinking. This is neural rehearsal. Research from Cleveland Clinic demonstrated that mental rehearsal activates the same neural pathways as physical practice. When Amira visualizes calm responses to courtroom provocations, she is literally training her brain to produce those responses automatically. By the time she faces the actual provocation, her nervous system has already practiced staying regulated. The calm response is not something she has to create in the moment. It is something she has already built through repetition. After the visualization, Amira does a series of physiological sighs, the technique you learned in Chapter 2. 3 rounds of double inhale, long exhale. This ensures her nervous system is in ventral vagal before she walks through the courtroom doors. And as she enters, she does one final thing. She feels her feet on the floor with each step. This grounding technique keeps her connected to her body rather than lost in anxious thoughts about what might happen. The result is striking. Judges and colleagues have described Amira as the calmest presence in any courtroom. They assume this is her personality. They think she was born this way. But Amira knows the truth. Her calm is not a trait. It is a practice. It is 30 minutes of deliberate regulation before every single court appearance. The calm they see is the output of a system she has trained. Now let us look at Noah, whose challenge is different from Jordan's or Amira's. Noah does not struggle with freezing or feeling invisible. Noah struggles with the opposite. He is too reactive, too intense. His nervous system runs hot, and when he is triggered, he explodes. This has cost him employees, investors, and relationships. His startup is successful despite his volatility, not because of it. And he knows that if he does not change, his own temperament will destroy what he has built. Noah's regulation practice had to address his specific pattern. Where Jordan needed to come out of freeze, Noah needed to come down from chronic sympathetic activation. His nervous system was stuck in fight mode, always scanning for threats, always ready to attack. The techniques that worked for Jordan and Amira were helpful but insufficient. Noah needed something more intensive. Lena introduced him to what she called the morning reset protocol. Every morning, before Noah checks his phone, before he looks at email, before he engages with any external stimulus, he spends 20 minutes regulating his nervous system. The protocol has 3 parts. First, 5 minutes of slow breathing. Not the 2-breath reset, but an extended practice. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Exhale for 6 counts. Hold for 2 counts. This pattern, sometimes called box breathing with an extended exhale, is used by Navy SEALs and elite athletes to build nervous system resilience. Second, 5 minutes of cold exposure. Noah ends his shower with 60 seconds of cold water, followed by 4 minutes of standing in the cold air without reaching for a towel. This sounds extreme, but the research is clear. Cold exposure activates the vagus nerve, increases stress tolerance, and trains the nervous system to return to baseline quickly after activation. A 2022 study published in Cell Reports Medicine found that regular cold exposure reduced inflammatory markers and improved emotional regulation in participants. Third, 10 minutes of silent stillness. No phone, no music, no stimulation, just sitting with his own thoughts and sensations. For Noah, this was the hardest part. His entire life had been built around intensity and stimulation. Sitting still felt like torture at first. But this discomfort was precisely the point. By practicing tolerance of low stimulation states, Noah was expanding his window of tolerance. He was teaching his nervous system that calm was not dangerous, that stillness was not death. The changes did not happen immediately. For the first 2 weeks, Noah felt worse. His body craved the cortisol spikes he was denying it. But by week 4, something shifted. He noticed that triggers that would have sent him into rage were now producing irritation that passed quickly. He noticed that he could disagree with employees without raising his voice. He noticed that his sleep improved and his baseline mood lifted. His head of people, Ella, was the first to comment. She said, "I do not know what you are doing differently, but please keep doing it. People are less afraid to bring you problems." That observation hit Noah harder than any investor feedback ever had. People had been afraid of him. His volatility had created a culture of fear that was limiting what his company could become. His nervous system dysregulation was not just a personal problem. It was an organizational one. Here is the principle that connects Jordan, Amira, and Noah. Regulation is not a reaction to pressure. Regulation is preparation for pressure. You do not wait until you are triggered to start breathing. You do not wait until you are in the meeting to start grounding. You build your regulated state before you need it, so that when pressure arrives, you are already anchored. The stress hits a nervous system that is already calm, and therefore it does not destabilize you. This is how calm people stay calm. Not through willpower, not through suppression, through preparation. Here is the difference between how elite performers and average performers approach high-pressure situations. Average performers focus on what they will say and do. They rehearse their talking points. They prepare their slides. They think about strategy. All of this is necessary, but it is incomplete. Elite performers prepare the same way, but they add one crucial element. They prepare their state. They ask not just what will I say, but what state will I say it from. They know that the same words delivered from a dysregulated nervous system land completely differently than words delivered from a regulated one. So they invest time in state preparation, knowing that this invisible work determines everything visible that follows. You now have the techniques. The two-breath reset for immediate pre-situation regulation. The internal courtroom for mental rehearsal of calm responses. The morning reset protocol for building baseline nervous system resilience. The physiological sigh for rapid vagal activation. The golden 5 seconds for in-the-moment intervention when you are triggered. These are not theories. These are tools. And like any tools, they only work if you use them. In the next chapter, you will learn how to project confidence without saying a word. You will discover how body language, eye contact, and physical presence communicate authority directly to other people's nervous systems. And you will watch Amira face her biggest test yet, a confrontation with an aggressive opposing counsel who is determined to break her composure on the biggest stage of her career. Your nervous system is the instrument. Regulation is how you tune it. And now it is time to learn how to play. Chapter 6. Projecting confidence without words. People decide whether to trust you in the first 7 seconds. And in those 7 seconds, you have not said a word. Your body has already spoken for you. It has broadcast your nervous system state to everyone watching. And that broadcast determines everything that follows. This is the truth about quiet confidence that most people never grasp. Confidence is not primarily verbal. Confidence is physical. It lives in how you stand, how you move, how you hold eye contact, how you occupy space. Master the physical signals, and your words become almost secondary. Neglect them, and no amount of eloquent speech will save you. Research from Princeton University's psychology department found that humans form judgments about competence, trustworthiness, and leadership potential within 100 milliseconds of seeing someone. That is 1/10 of a second. Faster than a single word can be spoken. These snap judgments are remarkably accurate and remarkably persistent. First impressions formed in milliseconds predict outcomes in job interviews, legal proceedings, and leadership elections with surprising consistency. What are people reading in that fraction of a second? They are reading your body. Specifically, they are reading signals that reveal your nervous system state. Expanded posture versus contracted posture. Fluid movement versus jerky movement. Steady eye contact versus darting eyes. Relaxed facial muscles versus tension. These physical markers communicate directly to other people's nervous systems, bypassing conscious analysis entirely. This is why you can sense when someone is anxious even if they are saying all the right things. Their words say confident, but their body says threatened. And when words and body contradict each other, people trust the body. Every time. Let me take you into the most important moment of Amira Blake's career. It was a federal case. Her client faced 20 years. The opposing counsel was a man named David Mercer, known throughout the legal community for one thing: breaking witnesses, breaking opposing attorneys, using psychological pressure and aggressive tactics to destabilize anyone who stood in his way. He had never lost a federal case in 12 years. Amira had prepared for weeks. She knew the evidence inside out. She had rehearsed her arguments until they were flawless. But she also knew that Mercer would not attack her arguments. He would attack her. His strategy was to provoke emotional reactions, then use those reactions to undermine credibility. He had destroyed more experienced attorneys than Amira with this approach. The confrontation came during her closing argument. Amira stood before the jury, delivering the case for her client's innocence. Mercer sat at his table, waiting. She was 3 minutes into her statement when he made his move. "Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is misrepresenting the evidence." The objection was baseless. Amira knew it. The judge knew it. Mercer knew it. That was not the point. The point was interruption. The point was disruption. The point was to throw her off balance and see how she reacted. Every eye in the courtroom turned to Amira. She did not flinch. She did not turn toward Mercer. She did not show any visible reaction at all. She simply paused, her gaze steady on the jury, her posture unchanged. She waited. The judge overruled the objection. Amira continued exactly where she had left off. Same tone, same pace, same grounded presence. as if the interruption had never happened. Mercer tried again 4 minutes later. Another baseless objection. Another attempt to rattle her. Again, Amira showed nothing. No frustration. No acknowledgement. No break in her composure. She waited for the ruling, then continued. By the third objection, something had shifted in the room. The jury was watching Mercer with visible irritation. His tactics, which usually worked by making opposing counsel look emotional and unstable, were backfiring. Amira's non-reaction made him look desperate. Her calm made his aggression seem petty. She won the case. Her client walked free, and 3 jurors approached her afterward to say the same thing. "We trusted you because you never lost your composure. You seemed like the only adult in the room." What did Amira do in those moments? She applied a technique she had practiced hundreds of times. She called it the still face strategy. The still face strategy is based on research from developmental psychology. In the 1970s, Dr. Edward Tronick at Harvard conducted experiments showing that human beings are exquisitely sensitive to facial expressions. When a mother's face goes still and non-reactive, infants become distressed because they cannot read her emotional state. This sensitivity persists into adulthood. We are constantly scanning faces for emotional information. And when we encounter a face that reveals nothing, it commands attention. Here is how the still face strategy works in practice. When you are provoked or attacked, you consciously relax your facial muscles. You soften your forehead. You unclench your jaw. You let your eyes remain steady without widening or narrowing. You maintain a neutral expression that reveals nothing about your internal state. This is not a blank stare. It is a composed presence. It signals that the provocation has not landed, that you are unaffected, that you remain in control. The effect on aggressors is profound. Aggression seeks reaction. When someone attacks you verbally, they are watching for signs that their attack has landed. Widened eyes, a tightened jaw, a defensive posture, a raised voice. These reactions reward the aggressor and encourage more aggression. But when they attack and see nothing, when your face remains still and your body remains grounded, they lose their feedback loop. They do not know if their attack is working. And in that uncertainty, their aggression often falters. Amira practiced the still face strategy in front of a mirror for months before that federal case. She would watch videos of aggressive cross-examinations and practice maintaining her neutral expression. She would have colleagues provoke her and practice showing nothing. She trained her facial muscles the same way an athlete trains their body. And when the real test came, her face knew what to do. But the face is only one element of nonverbal authority. Your posture communicates just as powerfully. Research from Harvard Business School by Dr. Amy Cuddy demonstrated that expansive postures, taking up space, arms uncrossed, shoulders back, are associated with higher testosterone and lower cortisol. These hormonal shifts make you feel more confident and appear more confident to others. Conversely, contracted postures, making yourself small, crossing arms, hunching shoulders, are associated with lower testosterone and higher cortisol. These postures signal submission and anxiety. Here is the key insight. The relationship between posture and hormones works both ways. Your emotional state affects your posture, but your posture also affects your emotional state. If you deliberately adopt an expansive, grounded posture, your hormones shift to match. This means you can use posture as a regulation tool. By changing your body position, you change your internal state. Elite performers understand this bidirectional relationship. Average performers let their emotional state dictate their posture. They feel anxious, so they contract. They feel threatened, so they shrink. And the contracted posture makes them feel even more anxious, creating a downward spiral. Elite performers reverse the causality. They deliberately adopt grounded, expansive postures regardless of how they feel. And the posture shifts their state, creating an upward spiral toward confidence. Here is a practical technique you can use immediately. It is called the authority anchor. Before entering any high-stakes situation, you establish your physical baseline. Stand with your feet shoulder-width apart, weight evenly distributed. Let your arms hang naturally at your sides, not crossed, not in your pockets. Roll your shoulders back slightly so your chest is open. Lift your chin so it is parallel to the ground, not tilted up arrogantly or down submissively. Take 2 breaths in this position, feeling your feet connected to the floor. This is your anchor position. This is the posture you return to whenever you feel yourself contracting or becoming defensive. By practicing this posture repeatedly, you create a physical home base that your body recognizes as confidence and calm. Eye contact is the 3rd pillar of nonverbal authority. How you use your eyes communicates volumes about your internal state. Anxious eye contact darts. It scans the room rapidly, unable to settle. It breaks away quickly when met by another gaze. It looks down when challenged. These patterns signal threat detection. They tell observers that your nervous system is in sympathetic arousal, scanning for danger. Confident eye contact is different. It is steady without being aggressive. It meets other gazes and holds them comfortably for 3 to 5 seconds before moving naturally to the next point of focus. It does not dart or scan. It does not look away when challenged. It does not stare aggressively, which would signal threat rather than calm. Research from the University of Wolverhampton found that people who maintain steady eye contact are rated as more confident, more competent, and more trustworthy than those with avoidant eye contact patterns. The effect is significant. Approximately 23% of perceived confidence comes from eye contact alone. Amira mastered eye contact as part of her courtroom presence. When she addresses the jury, she makes brief, genuine eye contact with each juror in turn. Not staring, not performing, simply connecting one human to another. When opposing counsel tries to intimidate her with aggressive eye contact, she meets their gaze calmly without looking away. She does not escalate into a staring contest. She simply holds steady until they break, or she chooses to shift her attention elsewhere. This is the difference between confident eye contact and aggressive eye contact. Confident eye contact is grounded and calm. It says, "I see you and I am not threatened." Aggressive eye contact is hard and challenging. It says, "I am trying to dominate you." The first builds trust. The second triggers defense. Here is what separates elite communicators from average ones in nonverbal presence. Average communicators focus on what they will say. They rehearse their words, their arguments, their talking points. They walk into rooms thinking about content. Elite communicators prepare their presence first. They set their posture before they speak. They regulate their breathing before they enter. They know that how they show up physically determines how their words will land. They understand that nonverbal signals arrive first and filter everything that follows. Your body is always communicating. The question is whether it is communicating what you intend. When your nervous system is dysregulated, your body broadcasts anxiety regardless of what your words say. When your nervous system is regulated, your body broadcasts calm authority that amplifies everything you say. This is why all the techniques in this audiobook build on each other. Nervous system regulation creates the internal state. Nonverbal presence broadcasts that state to others. And when your internal reality and external presentation align, you create something rare and powerful. Authentic confidence that others can feel before you speak a word. In the next chapter, you will learn how to handle difficult people without losing your center. You will discover specific techniques for disarming aggression, redirecting conflict, and maintaining your authority when others try to destabilize you. And you will meet Noah in his most challenging moment yet, facing a board of investors who are questioning his fitness to lead his own company. Your presence speaks before your words do. Now it is time to make sure it speaks with authority. Chapter 7. Handling difficult people with calm. Difficult people are not your problem. Your reaction to difficult people is your problem. That distinction changes everything about how you handle conflict, confrontation, and the inevitable moments when someone tries to destabilize you. And Noah Reyes was about to learn this lesson in the most high-stakes setting imaginable. The boardroom was silent. 5 investors sat across the polished mahogany table, their faces unreadable. Noah had built this company from nothing. 7 years of sleepless nights, impossible decisions, and relentless execution. His startup was now valued at $200 million. And the people who had backed him from the beginning were now questioning whether he should remain in charge. The lead investor, a man named Richard Kessler, spoke first. His voice was measured, but his words were sharp. "Noah, We need to address the elephant in the room. We have received multiple reports about your management style. 3 senior employees have resigned in the past 6 months, citing hostile work environment. Your head of engineering described your leadership as, and I quote, volatile and unpredictable. We need to understand what is happening and whether you are the right person to take this company to the next level. 6 months ago, Noah would have exploded. He would have defended himself aggressively, attacked the credibility of the complaints, and stormed out feeling justified in his anger. That reaction had served him in the chaotic world of rock music. It had nearly destroyed his company. But Noah had been practicing. For months of morning regulation protocols, dozens of sessions with Lena Park, countless moments of catching himself before reacting and choosing a different response. This moment was the test of everything he had learned. He felt the familiar surge of adrenaline. His chest tightened. His jaw clenched. His first impulse was to fight, to defend, to dominate. But instead of acting on that impulse, he paused. He took one slow breath. He felt his feet on the floor, and he asked himself the question that had become his anchor. What response actually serves me here? Fighting would not serve him. Defending aggressively would confirm exactly what the investors feared. The only path forward was the one his old self would never have chosen. Calm honesty. You are right, Noah said. His voice was steady. The feedback is accurate. I have struggled with emotional regulation my entire life. The intensity that helped me build this company also created a culture where people were afraid to bring me problems. That is unacceptable, and I have been working to change it. The investors exchanged glances. This was not what they expected. They had prepared for defensiveness. They had prepared for excuses. They had not prepared for ownership. Noah continued. 4 months ago, I started working with an executive coach specializing in nervous system regulation. I have implemented daily practices to manage my reactivity. I have apologized directly to the employees I affected. And I have asked Ella, our head of people, to give me honest feedback on my progress. I am not asking you to trust my words. I am asking you to give me 90 days to demonstrate change, and then judge me by the results. Richard leaned back in his chair. The tension in the room shifted. What had begun as an intervention was becoming a conversation. This is the power of calm in confrontation. When someone attacks you, they expect one of 2 responses. They expect you to fight back, which escalates the conflict and often proves their point about your volatility. Or they expect you to collapse, which confirms their dominance and your weakness. What they do not expect is grounded non-reactivity combined with honest acknowledgement. This third response disarms because it removes the adversarial frame entirely. Here is the principle that changes how you handle difficult people. You cannot control their behavior. You can only control your response to their behavior. And your response determines whether the situation escalates or de-escalates, whether you maintain authority or surrender it, whether you come out stronger or diminished. Most people try to change difficult people. They argue. They explain. They try to convince. They exhaust themselves attempting to make unreasonable people reasonable. This approach almost never works because you cannot regulate another person's nervous system. You can only regulate your own. But here is the remarkable truth. When you regulate your own nervous system, you often shift the entire dynamic. Your calm becomes contagious. Your groundedness creates space for the other person to settle. Not always. Some people are committed to conflict regardless of how you respond. But far more often than most people realize, your calm changes the interaction. Let me give you a framework for handling difficult people in any context. It is called the calm protocol, and it works whether you are facing an aggressive colleague, a hostile client, a combative family member, or an investor questioning your fitness to lead. The C stands for center. Before you respond to anything, center yourself. Feel your feet on the floor. Take one breath with an extended exhale. Drop your shoulders. Soften your jaw. This takes 3 to 5 seconds and shifts you from reactive to responsive. Do this before you speak a single word. The A stands for acknowledge. Find something in the other person's position that you can genuinely acknowledge. This does not mean agreeing with everything they say. It means identifying the kernel of truth or legitimate concern underneath their delivery. When Noah acknowledged that the feedback was accurate, he was not surrendering. He was demonstrating the security to admit imperfection. This acknowledgement lowers the other person's defenses because they no longer need to fight to be heard. The L stands for limit. Set clear limits on what you will and will not accept. Calm does not mean passive. Calm does not mean letting people walk over you. Calm means setting boundaries without emotional charge. If someone is being verbally abusive, you might say, "I am happy to discuss this, but I will not continue if the tone remains aggressive." If someone is making unreasonable demands, you might say, "I understand your urgency, but that timeline is not possible." The key is that your limit is stated firmly but without anger. Anger signals that they have gotten to you. Calm firmness signals that your boundary is non-negotiable. The M stands for move. Move the conversation toward resolution. Ask questions that redirect from conflict to problem solving. What would a good outcome look like for you? What do you need from me right now? How can we move forward from here? These questions shift the frame from adversarial to collaborative. They position you as the person seeking solutions rather than the person perpetuating conflict. Noah used this protocol intuitively in the investor meeting. He centered himself before responding. He acknowledged the legitimate concerns. He set a limit by asking for 90 days rather than accepting an immediate verdict. And he moved toward resolution by proposing specific metrics for measuring his progress. Here is how elite performers differ from average ones when facing difficult people. Average performers match energy. If someone comes at them with aggression, they respond with aggression. If someone is cold and dismissive, they become defensive and pleading. They let the other person's state dictate their state. This is emotional contagion working against you. Elite performers set energy. Regardless of how someone approaches them, they respond from their own centered state. They do not match aggression with aggression. They do not match hostility with hostility. They remain grounded and let their groundedness influence the interaction. This is emotional contagion working for you. There is a specific technique for moments when someone is being particularly aggressive or hostile. It is called the tension absorber. Imagine that you are a shock absorber, like the ones in a car's suspension system. When aggressive energy comes at you, instead of bouncing it back, you absorb it. You let it land without impact. You take in the force and dissipate it through your grounded stance. Practically, this means maintaining your regulated state while the other person expresses their intensity. You do not interrupt. You do not defend. You do not counterattack. You let them finish. You absorb. And then, when they have exhausted their initial energy, you respond from calm. This technique works because aggression needs resistance to sustain itself. When you absorb instead of resist, the aggression has nowhere to go. It often diminishes on its own. Amira used this technique constantly in the courtroom. When opposing counsel would launch into aggressive attacks, she would sit quietly, face neutral, body relaxed, absorbing the energy without reaction. By the time they finished, their aggression had lost momentum, and her calm response afterward carried even more weight by contrast. But handling difficult people is not just about individual confrontations. It is about long-term patterns. Some difficult people are temporary challenges. A hostile opposing counsel, a frustrated client, an angry customer. You handle the moment and move on. But other difficult people are permanent fixtures in your life. A volatile boss, a combative colleague, a challenging family member. For these ongoing relationships, you need a sustainable approach. The key is consistency. Difficult people often test boundaries repeatedly to see if you will maintain them. If you stay calm 9 times but explode on the 10th, they learn that persistence pays off. They learn that if they push hard enough, they can break your composure. But if you remain consistently calm, consistently non-reactive, consistently grounded, they eventually adapt. They learn that their tactics do not work on you, and they often redirect their behavior elsewhere. Jordan experienced this with Marcus over several months. At first, Marcus continued his dominance tactics in meetings, interrupting, challenging, trying to destabilize. But Jordan stayed regulated. Meeting after meeting, Jordan responded with calm precision instead of defensive reactivity. And gradually, Marcus shifted. He did not become a different person. He simply stopped targeting Jordan. The reward of provocation had disappeared, so the provocation stopped. Here is something important to understand. Handling difficult people with calm does not mean tolerating abuse. There is a difference between non-reactivity and passivity. Non-reactivity means not being emotionally destabilized by someone's behavior. It means responding from choice rather than reaction. Passivity means allowing harmful behavior to continue without consequence. You can be non-reactive and still set firm boundaries. You can be calm and still remove yourself from toxic situations. You can be grounded and still report harassment, document inappropriate behavior, or end relationships that are consistently harmful. The goal is not to endure difficult people forever through sheer willpower. The goal is to handle them effectively without sacrificing your own well-being. Sometimes effective handling means calm engagement. Sometimes it means firm boundaries. Sometimes it means strategic disengagement. And sometimes it means walking away entirely. The key is that whatever you choose it consciously from a regulated state rather than reactively from a triggered one. Noah's meeting with the investors ended very differently than he had feared. Richard Kessler agreed to the 90-day review period. Two other investors expressed appreciation for Noah's honesty and self-awareness. One even said that Noah's response in that meeting demonstrated exactly the kind of growth they needed to see. By staying calm when everything in him wanted to fight, Noah had turned a potential disaster into an opportunity to demonstrate change. 3 months later, the metrics spoke for themselves. Employee satisfaction scores had improved by 34%. 0 senior resignations. Ella reported that people were bringing problems to Noah earlier because they no longer feared his reaction. The investors not only renewed their confidence in Noah, but increased their investment in the next funding round. His calm had not just saved his position, it had elevated him. This is what becomes possible when you master the art of handling difficult people. You stop being destabilized by them. You stop giving away your power. And you start creating outcomes that reactive people never achieve. In the next chapter, you will learn how to integrate everything you have discovered into a single, unified system. The Silent Power Framework will bring together nervous system regulation, non-reactivity, physical presence, and strategic communication into a practical approach you can apply in any situation. You will see the complete system and understand exactly how to make it your own. The difficult people in your life are not going to change, but your response to them can transform everything. Chapter 8. The Silent Power Framework. Everything you have learned so far is a fragment, powerful on its own, but incomplete. Now it is time to assemble the fragments into a complete system, a framework you can apply in any situation, under any pressure, with any person. This is the Silent Power Framework, and it will change how you move through every challenging moment for the rest of your life. The framework rests on a single insight that most people never grasp. Authority is not something you perform. Authority is something you embody. It flows from your internal state outward into the world. When your nervous system is regulated, your body broadcasts confidence. Your words carry weight. Your presence commands attention. When your nervous system is dysregulated, no amount of technique can compensate. The anxiety leaks through. The insecurity shows. People sense the gap between your words and your state. This is why the Silent Power Framework begins with state, not strategy. It prioritizes who you are being over what you are saying. And it gives you a repeatable process for shifting into the state from which authority naturally flows. The framework has 4 steps. Regulate, observe, choose, speak. These 4 steps, applied in sequence, transform how you handle any high-pressure situation. Let me walk you through each one, and then show you how Jordan, Amira, and Noah apply the complete system in their own contexts. Step 1 is regulate. Before you do anything else, you regulate your nervous system. This is the foundation upon which everything else is built. You cannot observe clearly from a triggered state. You cannot choose wisely from fight or flight. You cannot speak with authority when your biology is broadcasting threat. Regulation comes first. You already have multiple tools for this step. The 2-breath reset for immediate regulation. The physiological sigh for rapid vagal activation. The golden 5 seconds for in-the-moment intervention. The morning reset protocol for building baseline resilience. Which tool you use depends on the situation. If you have 30 seconds before a meeting, use the 2-breath reset. If you are already in the room and feel triggered, use the golden 5 seconds. If you are building long-term capacity, commit to daily morning practice. The specific tool matters less than the commitment to regulate before you engage. Step 2 is observe. Once you are regulated, you observe. You take in what is actually happening rather than what your triggered mind fears is happening. You notice the other person's state. You notice the dynamics in the room. You notice what is being said and what is being left unsaid. You gather information before you act. Most people skip this step entirely. They react to the first thing that triggers them without pausing to observe the full picture. This leads to responses that miss the point, escalate unnecessarily, or address the wrong problem entirely. Observation creates space. It allows you to see opportunities that reactive people miss. It allows you to understand what the other person actually needs rather than what they appear to be demanding. It gives you strategic advantage. Observation requires a specific stance, curious rather than defensive, open rather than guarded. You are not observing to find ammunition for your counterattack. You are observing to understand. What is this person really saying? What do they need? What is driving their behavior? What outcome would actually serve everyone here? These questions only become visible when you are regulated enough to ask them. Step 3 is choose. From your regulated, observant state, you choose your response, not react. Choose. This is the critical distinction that separates silent power from either passive withdrawal or aggressive reaction. You are not suppressing your response. You are not avoiding the situation. You are deliberately selecting the response that best serves your goals from a menu of options that only becomes visible when you are calm. Choice requires clarity about what you actually want. In the heat of a confrontation, most people lose sight of their real objectives. They get caught up in winning the argument, defending their ego, or proving they are right. These reactive goals often conflict with their actual interests. The person who wins the argument but destroys the relationship has not truly won. The person who defends their ego but loses the deal has not truly protected themselves. When you pause to choose, you reconnect with your real objectives. You ask yourself what outcome actually serves you, not what would feel satisfying in the moment, not what would show them, what would genuinely move you toward your goals. From this clarity, your response becomes strategic rather than emotional. Step 4 is speak. Only after you have regulated, observed, and chosen do you speak. And when you speak from this state, everything is different. Your voice is steady because your nervous system is calm. Your words are precise because you have observed clearly and chosen deliberately. Your message lands because your body and your words are aligned. There is no gap between what you are saying and what you are broadcasting. You are congruent, and congruence is felt. Speaking from the silent power framework does not mean speaking more. Often it means speaking less. A single sentence delivered from a regulated state has more impact than a paragraph delivered from anxiety. A calm question can redirect an entire conversation more effectively than a defensive monologue. The framework gives you the foundation to trust that less is more, that your words, when they come from this state, do not need volume or quantity to carry weight. Here is how elite performers differ from average ones in applying this framework. Average performers try to start at step 4. They focus on what to say, how to say it, what arguments to make, what points to emphasize. They skip regulation, observation, and choice entirely. And then they wonder why their carefully prepared words fall flat or backfire. The problem is not their words. The problem is the state from which they deliver them. Elite performers start at step 1. They regulate first, always. They know that the quality of their speaking depends entirely on the quality of their state. They invest time in the invisible work of regulation because they understand that everything visible depends on it. Let me show you how this looks in practice. Jordan now uses the framework before every important meeting. As he walks toward the conference room, he does the 2-breath reset. That is regulation. As he enters, he scans the room. Who is here? What is the energy? What might be at stake for each person? That is observation. As discussion begins, he listens more than he speaks. When he does prepare to contribute, he asks himself what point would actually move this conversation forward. That is choice. And when he speaks, His voice is calm, his posture is grounded, his words are concise. That is speaking from silent power. The transformation is remarkable. Jordan used to leave meetings replaying everything he should have said differently. Now he leaves meetings knowing that he said exactly what he meant to say, from exactly the state he intended. The second guessing has disappeared because there is nothing to second guess. His responses are intentional, not reactive. Amira applies the framework in the courtroom with precision that has become instinctive. Before she rises to speak, she takes one grounding breath. Regulation. As she approaches the witness or faces the jury, she observes the witness's body language, the juror's attention, the judge's energy. She gathers data in real time. When a moment requires response, whether to an objection, a hostile witness, or an unexpected development, she pauses internally to choose. What serves her client here? What advances her case? Only then does she speak, and her words carry the weight of deliberate authority. Other attorneys have noticed. They describe Amira as unflappable. They assume it is her personality. But Amira knows it is her practice. It is 4 steps, applied thousands of times, until they became automatic. The framework is now wired into her nervous system. Noah applies the framework differently because his challenge is different. His default is not freeze, but explosion. So his practice emphasizes the space between trigger and response. When he feels the familiar surge of anger, that is his cue to regulate immediately. He has learned that the surge itself is not the problem. Acting from the surge is the problem. So he uses the golden 5 seconds. He notices the trigger. He feels his feet. He breathes. He softens his face. He asks what response actually serves him. This pause, which once felt impossible, has become his superpower. His team no longer braces for explosions. His investors no longer worry about his volatility. His company culture has transformed from fear-based to trust-based. All because Noah learned to insert 4 steps between stimulus and response. The silent power framework is not complicated. Regulate, observe, choose, speak. 4 steps that anyone can learn. But simple does not mean easy. The challenge is not understanding the framework. The challenge is applying it consistently, especially when you are triggered, especially when the stakes are high, especially when every instinct is screaming at you to react immediately. This is why practice matters. You cannot expect to apply the framework perfectly in high-pressure moments if you have not practiced in low-pressure ones. Start small. Use the framework in everyday conversations. Use it when a colleague mildly irritates you. Use it when a family member pushes a minor button. Build the neural pathways in situations where the stakes are low so that the pathways are available when the stakes are high. Here is what most people do not understand about mastery. Mastery is not about perfect performance. Mastery is about consistent practice. You will not apply the framework perfectly every time. You will still get triggered. You will still react when you meant to respond. You will still say things you regret. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. Each time you catch yourself, each time you return to the framework, each time you choose regulation over reaction, you strengthen the pathway. Over time, the framework becomes your default, not through willpower, but through repetition. Jordan still gets triggered sometimes. Amira still feels anxiety before difficult cases. Noah still feels the surge of anger when things go wrong. The difference is not that they no longer experience these responses. The difference is that they no longer act from them. They have built a space between stimulus and response where choice lives. And that space has changed everything. The framework you now possess is complete. You understand nervous system regulation and why it creates the foundation for authority. You understand the psychology of silence and non-reactivity. You understand how to project confidence through physical presence. You understand how to handle difficult people without losing your center. And you understand how to integrate all of these elements into a single, repeatable system. But knowledge is not transformation. Application is transformation. In the next chapter, you will learn how to build unshakable inner authority, the identity shift that makes silent power not just something you do, but something you are. You will discover how to move from practicing these techniques to embodying them. And you will understand why the deepest source of authority is not external at all. The framework is your map. Now it is time to become the territory. Chapter 9. Building Unshakable Inner Authority. Techniques can be learned in hours. Identity takes longer. And until your calm becomes who you are rather than what you do, it will always be fragile. This chapter is about the shift that makes silent power permanent. The shift from practicing authority to embodying it. From doing calm to being calm. From applying techniques to becoming the person for whom those techniques are unnecessary. There is a moment in every transformation journey where something clicks, where the practice stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like expression, where you no longer have to remind yourself to regulate because regulation has become your default state. Jordan, Amira, and Noah all experienced this moment, and understanding what made it possible will accelerate your own transformation. Let me start with a truth that most personal development ignores. Techniques are not the deepest layer. Beneath every technique is a belief, and beneath every belief is an identity. If your identity says, "I am an anxious person," no amount of breathing techniques will create lasting calm. You might manage symptoms temporarily, but you will always return to your baseline because your baseline is determined by who you believe yourself to be. This is why so many people read self-improvement books, feel inspired for a week, and then return to their old patterns. They tried to change behavior without changing identity. They added techniques on top of a self-concept that contradicted those techniques. The techniques could not take root because the soil rejected them. Silent power requires a different approach. It requires changing the soil. It requires building an identity that naturally produces calm authority rather than constantly fighting against an identity that produces anxiety. This is not positive thinking. This is not affirmation. This is deliberate identity reconstruction based on evidence and experience. Here's how it works. Every time you successfully apply the silent power framework, you generate evidence. Evidence that you can stay calm under pressure. Evidence that you can handle difficult people without losing your center. Evidence that your words carry weight when delivered from a regulated state. This evidence accumulates. And as it accumulates, it begins to shift your self-concept. Jordan's identity shift happened gradually, then suddenly. For months, he practiced the techniques. 2-breath reset before meetings. Golden 5 seconds when triggered. Observation before response. Each successful application was a small deposit in what psychologists call the self-efficacy bank. He was building evidence that contradicted his old story about himself. His old story said that he was too quiet to be taken seriously, that he needed to become louder to succeed. That confident people were born that way, and he simply was not one of them. But the evidence kept contradicting the story. He stayed calm when Marcus provoked him. He spoke with authority in high-stakes meetings. Colleagues started seeking his opinion. The promotion he had lost came back around, and this time he got it. The moment of shift came unexpectedly. Jordan was walking into a board presentation, the highest stakes meeting of his career. He noticed something strange. He was not anxious. Not because he was suppressing anxiety, because there was no anxiety to suppress. His nervous system was calm. His mind was clear. He felt ready, not in a forced way, but in a genuine way. And in that moment, he realized something had fundamentally changed. He was no longer a nervous person practicing calm techniques. He had become a calm person. This is the identity shift. It does not happen through affirmation. It happens through accumulated evidence. You cannot convince yourself you are confident, but you can generate so much evidence of confident behavior that your self-concept has no choice but to update. Amira's shift had a different flavor. Her old identity was built around a painful contradiction. She was deeply empathic and sensitive in a profession that seemed to require coldness and aggression. She had spent years believing that her sensitivity was a weakness she needed to overcome, that to succeed as an attorney, she needed to become someone she was not. The evidence changed her story. Case after case, she won through calm rather than aggression. Judge after judge responded to her measured presence with respect. Jurors trusted her precisely because she did not perform. Her sensitivity, which she had considered a liability, turned out to be an asset. She could read witnesses and jurors with precision that aggressive attorneys missed entirely. Her empathy allowed her to connect with juries in ways that cold, dominating lawyers could not. The moment of shift came during a conversation with a young attorney who sought her advice. The young woman asked how Amira had learned to be so tough. Amira laughed. She said, "I am not tough at all. I am one of the most sensitive people I know. I just learned that sensitivity and strength are not opposites. My calm is not a mask over anxiety. It is the natural expression of someone who has made peace with who she is." That statement would have been impossible 3 years earlier. Amira had not just learned techniques. She had reconstructed her identity. She had stopped trying to become someone else and started developing the power that was already within her. Her sensitivity became her superpower because she stopped fighting it and started channeling it. Noah's identity shift required dismantling something before building something new. His old identity was fused with intensity. He believed that his volatility was inseparable from his creativity, that his explosive energy was the source of his success, that if he became calm, he would lose his edge. The evidence proved otherwise. As his morning regulation practice accumulated, his creativity did not diminish. It increased. Without the constant background noise of cortisol and adrenaline, his mind could think more clearly. Ideas that used to come in chaotic bursts now flowed more steadily. His decision-making improved because he was no longer making decisions from reactive states. His relationships deepened because people could finally relax around him. The moment of shift came during a product launch. Everything was going wrong. Server issues, customer complaints, a critical bug that threatened the entire release. The old Noah would have exploded, would have screamed at engineers, would have created chaos on top of chaos. But the new Noah stayed grounded. He asked clear questions. He directed resources calmly. He made decisions from clarity rather than panic. And his team, instead of freezing in fear, performed at their highest level because they were not managing his emotions on top of the crisis. After the successful launch, his co-founder said something that crystallized the shift. She said, "I used to think your intensity was what made you successful. Now I realize your intensity was what was limiting you. This version of you is 10 times more powerful." Noah understood. He had not lost his edge. He had found a sharper one. Calm was not the absence of power. Calm was power refined. Here is the principle that underlies all three transformations. Inner authority does not come from external validation. Inner authority comes from alignment between who you are and how you act. When your behavior consistently matches your values, when your external presentation aligns with your internal state, you develop a solidity that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. This is psychological authority, the quiet confidence that does not need to prove itself because it is not based on proof. It is based on being. Most people seek authority from the outside in. They want others to validate them. They want achievements to prove their worth. They want external markers of success to make them feel confident. This approach creates fragile authority. Authority that crumbles when validation is withdrawn. Authority that requires constant feeding from external sources. Silent power works from the inside out. You build internal stability first. You develop the capacity to regulate your nervous system regardless of external circumstances. You generate evidence of your own competence through accumulated experience. And from this internal foundation, you engage with the external world. You no longer need validation because you have something more reliable: self-knowledge. Here is how elite performers differ from average ones in their relationship to authority. Average performers derive their confidence from external feedback. Good meeting. They feel confident. Critical feedback. Confidence collapses. Their internal state is at the mercy of external events. They are thermometers, reflecting the temperature around them. Elite performers generate their confidence from internal alignment. Their state is influenced by external events, but not determined by them. They have built a baseline of inner stability that external circumstances can temporarily disturb but not destroy. They are thermostats, setting the temperature rather than merely reflecting it. Building this inner stability is not about ignoring feedback or becoming impervious to criticism. It is about having a stable foundation from which to receive and process feedback. When someone criticizes Jordan now, he can hear it without being destabilized. He can evaluate whether the criticism has merit. He can take useful feedback and discard what is not useful. He can do this because his sense of self is not dependent on universal approval. His inner authority is strong enough to withstand challenge. Here is a practice for building this inner stability. It is called the authority inventory. Once a week, you write down 3 specific moments where you demonstrated calm authority. Not general feelings. Specific moments. The meeting where you stayed grounded despite provocation. The conversation where you spoke less but said more. The conflict where you maintained composure while others lost theirs. By documenting these moments, you are building a case file of evidence. You are proving to yourself, through accumulated data, that you are the person you are becoming. Over time, this inventory becomes undeniable. You cannot argue with dozens of documented examples. Your old story about being too anxious or too quiet or too reactive loses its power because the evidence contradicts it. You have proof, generated by your own experience, that you are capable of silent power. And that proof becomes the foundation of a new identity. The techniques you have learned in this audiobook are powerful. The 2-breath reset, the golden 5 seconds, the still face strategy, the calm protocol, the silent power framework. These tools will serve you well for years. But the real transformation happens when you no longer need to consciously apply them. When calm authority becomes your default state. When people describe you as grounded and you realize they are not describing your technique. They are describing you. You are not learning to act calm. You are becoming calm. That is the difference that changes everything. In the final chapter, you will learn how to sustain this transformation for life. You will discover the daily practices that maintain your inner authority. You will see the path forward that Jordan, Amira, and Noah are walking. And you will understand exactly what to do tomorrow, next week, and next year to ensure that silent power is not something you learned once, but something you embody forever. The deepest authority is not performed. It is lived, and you are now ready to live it. Chapter 10. The Calm Leader's Path Forward. You have spent the last 2 hours learning what most people never discover. That authority is not volume. That confidence is not performance. That the calmest person in the room is almost always the most powerful. But knowledge without application fades. Insight without practice disappears. This final chapter is about making silent power permanent. About building a life where calm authority is not something you remember to do, but something you simply are. Let me show you where Jordan, Amira, and Noah are now. Not because their stories are finished, but because their stories show what becomes possible when you commit to this path. Jordan Hale is now vice president of product at his company. The promotion came 18 months after he began his silent power practice. But the title is not what changed. What changed is how he moves through the world. He leads meetings without dominating them. He speaks less than anyone at the executive table, but when he speaks, decisions follow. His team describes him as the calmest leader they have ever worked with. They bring him their hardest problems because they know he will not react with panic or blame. He will listen. He will observe. He will ask questions that clarify, and then he will help them find solutions. Last month, Jordan's company went through a crisis, a major product failure that threatened their largest customer relationship. The CEO called an emergency meeting. Executives were tense. Voices were raised. Blame was circulating. Jordan sat quietly through the chaos. He let the initial storm pass. And then he spoke. He said, "Let us separate what we know from what we fear." He asked 3 precise questions that reframed the entire discussion. Within an hour, the team had a recovery plan. The customer relationship was saved. Afterward, the CEO told Jordan that his calm in that meeting was worth more than any technical contribution he could have made. Jordan still practices. Every morning, he does the 2-breath reset before checking his phone. Every meeting, he pauses to regulate before entering. The techniques have become invisible. They are simply how he operates. But he knows that the calm he now embodies was built through thousands of small choices. Through every moment, he chose regulation over reaction. Through every meeting, he entered from groundedness rather than anxiety. The compound effect of those choices created the leader he has become. Amira Blake has become a name that opposing counsel respects and fears in equal measure. Not because she is aggressive, because she is unshakable. Her win rate in the courtroom has climbed to 83%. Judges request her for complex cases because they know proceedings will be professional and focused. Young attorneys seek her mentorship, and she teaches them what she wishes someone had taught her: that their sensitivity is not a weakness to overcome. That calm is the most powerful weapon in any adversarial environment. Amira recently argued a case before the state Supreme Court, the highest stakes of her career. Opposing counsel was a legendary litigator known for theatrical arguments and aggressive tactics. The courtroom was packed with attorneys who came to watch the confrontation. But there was no confrontation. Amira presented her case with measured precision. She answered hostile questions from the bench with thoughtful pauses followed by clear responses. She did not match the energy of her opponent. She set her own energy, and the contrast made her opponent look chaotic while she looked commanding. She won the case. The Chief Justice wrote in the opinion that counsel for the appellant demonstrated exceptional clarity and professionalism. Amira framed that sentence and hung it in her office. Not as a trophy, as a reminder. A reminder that the path she chose, the path of calm rather than aggression, was the right one. That she did not have to become someone else to succeed. She had to become more fully herself. Noah Reyes took his company public last quarter. The IPO was successful beyond projections. But when journalists asked about the key to his success, he did not talk about product strategy or market timing. He talked about the morning he realized that his greatest obstacle was not competition or funding or talent. It was his own nervous system. He told them that learning to regulate his emotions was the most valuable skill he had ever developed. That his company's success was built on the foundation of his own transformation. Noah still does his morning reset protocol every single day. 20 minutes before the world gets access to him. Breathing. Cold exposure. Stillness. His team knows not to schedule anything before 9 in the morning. That first hour belongs to his practice. He protects it the way he protects his most important meetings. Because he understands that his capacity to lead depends entirely on his capacity to regulate. Without that foundation, everything else crumbles. His company culture has transformed. Fear is no longer the dominant emotion. People speak up in meetings. They bring problems early rather than hiding them until they become crises. They take creative risks because they know that failure will be met with analysis, not explosion. The company's Glassdoor rating went from 3.2 stars to 4.7 stars in 2 years. The difference was not new policies or perks. The difference was Noah. These 3 stories share a common thread. Transformation did not happen through a single insight. It happened through sustained practice over time. Jordan, Amira, and Noah did not become calm leaders by reading about calm leadership. They became calm leaders by practicing calm leadership thousands of times until it became who they are. This is the path forward for you. Not a destination to reach, but a practice to maintain. Let me give you the specific structure that will sustain your transformation. Daily practice is the foundation. Every single day, without exception, you invest in your nervous system regulation. This does not require hours. It requires consistency. The minimum effective dose is 5 minutes. 5 minutes of deliberate breathing, grounding, or stillness before you engage with the demands of the day. The 2-breath reset takes 15 seconds. The physiological sigh takes 30 seconds. You can do these multiple times throughout the day, before meetings, before difficult conversations, before any situation where you want to show up with calm authority. The morning reset protocol that Noah uses takes 20 minutes. If you can invest that time, the returns are significant. But even 5 minutes of morning regulation creates a baseline of calm that influences your entire day. The key is consistency. 5 minutes every day is more powerful than an hour once a week. You are training your nervous system the way an athlete trains their body. Daily repetition builds capacity that occasional practice never can. Weekly practice deepens the foundation. Once a week, do the authority inventory. Write down 3 specific moments from the past 7 days where you demonstrated calm authority. Be specific. Not "I felt calmer this week." Instead, Right in Tuesday's meeting, when Sarah challenged my proposal, I paused for 3 seconds before responding and asked a clarifying question instead of defending. This specificity builds evidence. It proves to your subconscious mind that you are becoming the person you intend to be. Also weekly, review one challenging moment where you could have responded with more calm. Not to criticize yourself. To learn. Ask what triggered you. Ask what you could have done differently. Ask what you will do next time. This review process accelerates learning. It transforms failures into feedback that improves future performance. Monthly practice expands the foundation. Once a month, deliberately seek out a situation that challenges your calm. This is the exposure ladder in action. Find an interaction that would have triggered you in the past and handle it with the silent power framework. Ask for feedback on a project you care about. Have a difficult conversation you have been avoiding. Address a conflict you have been letting fester. Each successful navigation of challenge expands your capacity. It proves to yourself that you can handle more than you thought. Also monthly, assess your progress. Compare your current responses to your responses 3 months ago. Notice what has changed. Celebrate the growth. Identify the areas that still need work. This assessment keeps you honest about your development and focused on continuous improvement. Quarterly practice ensures long-term sustainability. Every 3 months, review your transformation journey. Read through your authority inventory entries. Notice the patterns. Notice the growth. Notice how situations that used to trigger you no longer have the same power. This longer-term perspective reveals progress that daily experience can miss. You are often closer to your desired state than you realize. Quarterly review helps you see it. Also quarterly, challenge yourself to level up. Seek out a situation that is significantly more challenging than what you have handled before. A bigger meeting, a more difficult person, a higher stakes conversation. Growth requires progressive challenge. If you only practice in comfortable situations, you will only be calm in comfortable situations. Quarterly stretch challenges ensure that your capacity keeps expanding. Here is the principle that sustains transformation. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Goals are useful for direction, but systems determine outcomes. If your goal is to become a calm leader, but you have no daily practice, no weekly review, no monthly challenge, the goal will remain a wish. But if you build the systems I have described, transformation becomes inevitable, not through willpower, through structure. Let me address the obstacles you will face, because you will face them. Every person who commits to this path encounters resistance. The first obstacle is inconsistency. You will miss days. You will forget to practice. You will fall back into old patterns, especially under stress. This is normal. It is not failure. The goal is not perfect consistency. The goal is persistent consistency. When you miss a day, you do not abandon the practice. You simply begin again the next day. When you react instead of respond, you do not conclude that the practice does not work. You notice what happened, learn from it, and continue. Transformation is not linear. It is iterative. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, still equals progress over time. The second obstacle is impatience. You will want results faster than they come. You will practice for a few weeks and wonder why you have not been completely transformed. You will compare your insides to other people's outsides and feel like you are behind. This impatience is natural but counterproductive. Nervous system rewiring takes time. Identity reconstruction takes time. The changes happen gradually, often below conscious awareness, until one day you notice that something fundamental has shifted. Trust the process. Trust the compound effect of daily practice. The results will come. The third obstacle is isolation. You may feel alone in this practice. The people around you may not understand what you are doing or why. They may not notice your changes or may even resist them. This is common. When you change, it disrupts existing relationship patterns. Some people prefer the old you because the old you is predictable. Do not let their resistance stop your growth. Find community if you can. Others who are committed to similar development. But even without community, continue. Your transformation does not require anyone else's permission or approval. The fourth obstacle is perfectionism. You may hold yourself to an impossible standard. You may expect to be perfectly calm in every situation and feel like a failure when you are not. Release this expectation. Even masters of calm authority have moments of reactivity. Even the most regulated nervous systems get triggered sometimes. The goal is not perfection. The goal is a better baseline, a wider window of tolerance, a faster return to regulation after disruption. You are not trying to become superhuman. You are trying to become more fully yourself. Here is what I want you to remember as you close this audiobook and return to your life. You already have everything you need. The capacity for calm is not something you must acquire from outside yourself. It is something you must uncover from within. Your nervous system already knows how to regulate. Your body already knows how to ground. Your mind already knows how to observe and choose. The techniques in this audiobook are not adding something foreign. They are removing the obstacles to what is natural. You are not broken. You are not too anxious. You are not too quiet. You are not too reactive. You are a person who has been operating without the tools that your nervous system needed. Now you have those tools. And with practice, they will become not just tools you use, but capacities you embody. The world needs more calm leaders. The world needs more people who can hold steady when others are spinning out, who can listen when others are shouting, who can respond when others are reacting, who can create safety in rooms full of threat. This is not a small thing. This is a profound contribution to every relationship, every team, every organization, every community you are part of. You have learned that calm authority is a nervous system state that can be trained. You have learned that silence signals strength to the human brain. You have learned the art of non-reaction and the power of regulating before you respond. You have learned how to project confidence without words and how to handle difficult people without losing your center. You have learned the silent power framework and how to build unshakable inner authority. You have learned what it takes to sustain this transformation for life. Jordan was once invisible in meetings. Now he leads them. Amira was once told she was too soft. Now she is the most respected litigator in her city. Noah was once destroying his company with volatility. Now he is building an empire with calm. Their transformations are not special. They are not gifted with unusual capacities. They simply committed to the practice and sustained it over time. Everything they achieved is available to you. Here is the truth that underlies everything in this audiobook. Silence is not the absence of power. Silence is power in its purest form. The calmest person in the room is almost always the most powerful. And that person can be you. Not someday. Starting now. Your path forward is clear. Begin tomorrow with 5 minutes of morning regulation. Use the 2-breath reset before your first meeting. When someone triggers you, apply the golden 5 seconds. At the end of the week, document 3 moments of calm authority. And continue, day after day, week after week, month after month, until the practice becomes invisible, until calm becomes who you are. The world is loud. It rewards noise and punishes silence. It promotes those who dominate and overlooks those who are still. But the world is wrong. The evidence is clear. The research is conclusive. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most trusted. The most talkative is rarely the most influential. The most aggressive is rarely the most followed. The calm leader is. And now, that leader is you. This is silent power. This is your power. And the room is waiting. Bonus: the 60-second emergency protocol. You will not always have time to prepare. Life does not schedule its ambushes. One moment you are sitting in a routine meeting. The next moment a senior executive asks you a question that makes your heart stop. One moment you are having a normal conversation. The next moment someone attacks your competence in front of people whose opinions matter. One moment everything is fine. The next moment all eyes are on you and your nervous system is screaming one word: threat. This is the moment that separates those who crumble from those who command. And the difference is not personality. The difference is protocol. Jordan experienced this moment 6 months into his transformation. He was presenting quarterly results to the board when the CEO interrupted with a question that challenged the core assumptions of his entire strategy. 12 faces turned toward him. His heart rate spiked. His throat tightened. The old Jordan would have frozen. But the new Jordan had a protocol. Here's the system. Memorize it. Practice it until it becomes automatic. And when emergency strikes, execute it. Seconds 1 through 10. Ground. The moment you feel panic spike, ground yourself immediately. Feel your feet on the floor. Do not just notice them. Press them down slightly. Feel the pressure of contact between your soles and the surface beneath you. If you are sitting, feel your weight in the chair. This physical anchoring interrupts the upward spiral of panic. Anxiety lives in racing thoughts about what might happen. Grounding pulls you out of your catastrophizing mind and into your physical body. You are not in your fears. You are here, in this room. Solid. Jordan pressed his feet into the floor beneath the conference table. No one saw it, but he felt it. And that feeling created the foundation for everything that followed. Seconds 11 through 25. Breathe. Take one physiological sigh. 2 short inhales through your nose, filling your lungs completely, followed by 1 long, slow exhale through your mouth. The exhale should be at least twice as long as the inhales combined. Stanford research shows this is the fastest method for activating the parasympathetic nervous system. Within seconds, your heart rate begins to slow. Stress hormones begin to metabolize. You are sending a direct signal to your brain that the threat is manageable, that you can handle this. As you exhale, let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw soften. These micro-releases compound the calming effect and prevent your body from broadcasting tension to everyone watching. Seconds 26 through 40. Slow. Now consciously slow everything down. Slow your breathing to a steady pace. Slow your thoughts by focusing on one thing at a time. And most importantly, decide that when you speak, you will speak at 70% of your normal pace. Here is the principle. Fast is panic. Slow is power. When triggered, every instinct pushes you to speed up, to fill silence quickly, to escape discomfort. But speed signals anxiety. It tells everyone you are rattled. Deliberate slowness signals the opposite. It tells the room you are composed. You are thinking. You are choosing your words with intention. The same words delivered slowly land with authority. The same words delivered quickly land with desperation. Seconds 41 through 55. Observe. With your body grounded and your pace slowed, now observe. Look around the room slowly. Take in the faces. Read the energy. Notice what is actually happening rather than what your fear says is happening. Then ask yourself one critical question. What is actually being asked of me right now? Not what is the worst case scenario. Not what will happen if I fail. Just this. What is actually being asked? This question cuts through anxiety and focuses you on the only thing that matters. The present moment and its actual demands. Jordan asked himself this in the boardroom. The CEO had challenged his assumptions. What was actually being asked? Not to defend his ego, simply to explain his reasoning. When he saw the question clearly, the answer became obvious. Seconds 56 through 60. Choose. You have grounded. You have breathed. You have slowed. You have observed. Now choose your response, not your reaction. Reactions are automatic, driven by fear, often regretted. Responses are selected, driven by intention, aligned with your goals. Ask yourself one final question. What would the calm, grounded version of me say or do right now? Choose from that place. Then speak. Then act. Then trust. Jordan paused for 3 seconds after the CEO's question. Then he said, "That is an important challenge, and I want to address it directly." He spoke slowly. He maintained eye contact. He answered with clarity. The CEO nodded. The meeting continued. And Jordan had passed a test his former self would have failed. 60 seconds. Ground. Breathe. Slow. Observe. Choose. 5 steps that transform emergency into opportunity. Every executive who has mastered pressure will tell you the same thing. The battle is won in the pause, not in the response. This protocol works because it interrupts the hijack sequence. When your amygdala fires, it pushes you toward fight, flight, or freeze before your rational brain can intervene. The 60-second protocol buys time for your prefrontal cortex to come back online. It shifts you from automatic reaction to deliberate response. But here is the key. You cannot learn this in an emergency. You must practice before pressure arrives. Start with small moments. A mildly uncomfortable conversation. A minor confrontation. Use low-stakes situations to rehearse until the protocol becomes automatic. Then when real pressure hits, Your body will execute without thinking. You now have everything you need: the framework for transformation, the techniques for daily practice, and the emergency protocol for moments when everything happens too fast. The calm leader is not someone who never feels pressure. The calm leader has trained for pressure, has built the systems, can access regulation even when the world demands reaction. That leader is now you. This is your emergency weapon. Use it wisely, and no situation will own you again. The room is waiting.